from the get-go, our relationship was him abusing me. I think he said I have a head on me like a half-eaten orange, or a half-skinned bison.
You big fat cunt of a lummox.
But I did win one argument with him. I did go head-to-head with him in abusing each other. My final line was, "You were funnier when you were fat."
Well, Josh, we've shot on some pretty cool locations over the 5.5-year journey at dos&d, but New York City at Old Mate's Pub, we couldn't get a bigger and better guest. Brad Blanks, welcome to the dos&d show.
Fellas, yeah, great to be here. Amazing pub. Great to be with you guys, though. Doing great things, and the fact that this is your first interview in New York, I'm proud to be a part of history.
I wanted to almost put my hands together. It would have been just a bit awkward. Not much of an audience with us, but mate, this is special for us. Like being not just the first interview, but someone also in the media landscape who has, had a dream and gone overseas and really taken off. And you've been over here for such a long time now, but mate, maybe explain a little bit about where you live here in New York, and your life here.
I've been here 25 years, married, 3 kids, live on the Upper West Side. Very kind of like living in a mini suburbs of Manhattan in New York, and let's sort of live a quiet life as I plan and get excited about my next adventure. So I'm sort of still in the adventure-driven game of going to the next event and still creating content and creating media and having a crack. And you never stop thinking up the next idea, whatever that is. If anything, I should be trying to relax. But it's been a great run. Yeah, I got here October 2001.
Wow.
So, yeah, crazy.
Great time to get to New York.
Yes.
So I'm sure we'll touch on that. But just quickly, you said to us off air, so tell us how it works with Channel 9, because everything's kind of wrapped up now for the year. What does your kind of rest of the year look like, and a day in the life of Brad Blanks?
That's a good question. Don't worry. My wife asked me the same question as she goes to work, and I have to figure out my day ahead. No, Channel 9's been a great gig. I've been on Wide World of Sports for the last 5 years, and I've been their US correspondent, and that's more my role in that has sort of been an evolution of my role that I always did on breakfast radio in New York and Hamish and Andy, where it's more poking fun at US sports and the absurdity of it and the excitement around US sports, that there's something every single day revolving around sport. And my special, my patron saints of my segment is like John Daly, the golfer, Shohei Ohtani, we've seen his rise over the last 5 years, Aaron Judge, and like someone like Giannis has been a big part of the segment. From the Bucks.
That's huge.
Huge, and I'm just saying these are my patron saints. But of course, the dad who's sitting there in the outfield who catches a fly ball while somehow holding a beer and holding a baby at the same time. That's my bread and butter. So this segment's been great to call in, look down the barrel of the camera and just go crazy and be on there with great talent. Tubby Taylor's, the fact that I do TV with him. But Aussie TV market, they wrap up in November. So they wrapped up just last week, and I've got to sit there and now go, I've got to come up with some new ideas and some new ventures between when that starts up again in March. So in terms of a day in the life, wake up and figure out if there's a red carpet or an event, and if they'll have me, I'll go along and sort of create something out of that. Or I'll start even planning my year next year, like everything, the US landscape of big events and between sport and pop culture, be it film festivals or Super Bowls or Kentucky Derbies. I just sort of map it out and then start figuring out how I can attack it on a budget-friendly way.
Yeah, for sure. I'll relate to that in many ways. I'm keen to hear do you sit down with a whiteboard and you map out your year and you go, all right, this event's in the first quarter, and then the second, the third, the fourth. What's your process? Because thinking ahead, but also staying relevant with content that's current as well. Right. You've got to mix between the both of thinking ahead, but also what's happening today. What's your system?
Yeah, it's great. Like, there's definitely something in planning stuff 3 months out. Even if you don't achieve it, it's in your mind. So every day you're waking up, that's down there. But look, when I was I haven't done breakfast radio. That wrapped up a few years ago. But when I was doing that, every day I had to produce content out on the street. So that would be topic of the day. Red carpets always helped, and I saw that as free content going to a red carpet. When I say free content, you're going to get content there no matter what. As you guys know, if you go out onto the streets, you're not guaranteed to get good stuff. Although a lot of my work over the years has been rooted in failure. That's been, when I'm pushed into a corner and it's looked like it's going absolutely shit is when the magic somehow happens. Look, for the last 25, my whole game, and especially when the content was more powerful by doing morning radio, breakfast radio, I had to plan. I had to get it up. Back in the days, I was pitching. You'd be pitching advertisers to get money for that gig 3 months out, and then you'd be waking up and executing. Look, there was no real. I haven't really answered your question on the plan. I'll be honest, but it was. You always knew what was coming down the pipeline, but you knew what was happening Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, just to stay on top of it. And you're in New York City. It was it's still the media capital of the world. There's, there'd be moments where I would interview a fireman who had just broken a Chinese delivery food guy out of an elevator in the Bronx. And that night I'd be at a George Clooney red carpet interviewing George Clooney. And then the following morning they'd be dressing me up as Hannah Montana and making me run through New Jersey with 10-inch high dancing boots on with fishnet legs. So I was in this. I was wrapped in, so like, how the fuck do you plan that?
I couldn't. That wasn't at the top of your website.
No. I'll pull those photos out for you later. So there's no real planning, in stuff like that. But it was just an executing game, and I sense with you guys and most content creators, it's like I treated it like every post is a winner, and I still do. Every post is a winner. Although when you get a bit older, you get a bit more measured. But when I'd say in your stage and people that love you guys and watch you guys and are learning from what you're doing, every post is a winner, that phrase. It's not really used in America. But, you wake up and you just want to get to that next step. Yeah. And it's a fucking great feeling when, even when you fail, you keep going. And it's like this, like this awesome mentality of creating content. And if you hit 1 out of 4 of those bits that you're creating and they're fun and funny, it inspires you to keep chasing the next one. And it's like golf, a game rooted in failure, or even in baseball where the best players in the world only hit the ball 3 out of 10 times. Anyway, I'm pumped for you guys as well. So
thanks, very appreciate it. One thing you touched on before, and I think this could open potentially a can of worms, but you said you see if there's an event on, and then you'll decide if you can or can't get into it. But what we've learned from you is that can't's not really, and that's C-A-N-T for our American viewers. Can't's not really a word in your vocabulary, because you do manage to find yourself into some of these events. So can we hear some of the tactics? So if there's, what would be a yes versus a no? And then if it's a no, how do you get to that step of somehow finding a way through?
Yeah, look, all right, I'm going to break it down in a few ways here, because I'm not necessarily a good scammer to get in. Look, I've had my fair share, even before I started this wild game. Even when I was an 18-year-old uni student, I'd end up in, a mad Bulldogs fan in Melbourne, Western Bulldogs, and I'd be in super boxes drinking there just as the seconds would finish, and then the people who own the super box would turn up and go, "Who the fuck are you?" "Oh no, just keep your seats warm," and I'd walk out. So I was pretty good at
That's amazing.
Scamming my way into places. But I'd like to think, as I got the evolution over the last 25 years, I still had a massive media organisation behind me, albeit radio. So radio is still, even 25 years ago, when I got to New York, it was the ugly stepchild of. So it's still, of media, and I had to then, turn it on to use radio as my call letters to get into places. Now, one example would be I'd turn up to if I wasn't allowed on a red carpet, I'd still turn up. I'd use the theory, like, if I turn up and I'd use the line to the publicist, "Brad, we rejected you," and I'm like, "Well, I'm here anyway." And she'd just go, and I could see the defeat in the publicist's eyes. "All right, just go." And I'd get my spot at the very end of the red carpet, and I'd stand there and they'd draw up on a piece of paper, my call letters then were WPLJ, and some intern would sticky tape it down on the ground, and I'd be standing there. So there was a matter of just always showing up. So that's the first thing. You got to keep turning up and being polite and being happy and joyful to people, and know that and prove them wrong that what you're there to do, you're not there. You're there for a bit of a bit, so you guys can go, oh shit, that Brad Blanks turns up, but I'm going to still get them coverage, and I'm still going to, I still had the big company behind me to prove to them that I was meant to be there somehow. Yeah. But then there's other instances like I remember it was the Elton John Oscar party, and it was the Oscars 2006, and I remember for the Oscars they were early Oscars. It was like early February that year, and Hamish and Andy had just started calling in, and I was mates with those guys, and they said, they asked me to be part of their show. They went through the 2 weeks of pilots at the end of 05, and in the beginning 06, they'd already done like a week or 2 weeks of shows into Melbourne. And then on the Monday when I was going to go in, I told them I'm going to go to Elton John's Oscars party. I'm in LA for the Oscars. I'll go to this party. And they go, oh, remember, Brad, we're going national now. I think we're going Sydney and Brisbane, so no Melbourne references. Great, no worries. And I said, shit, but I've got a problem here. For those 3 weeks leading up to that party, I'd been emailing the lady who ran the party, the publicist, and she flat out would deny me. And I'm like, and I was on the biggest FM radio station in America that played Elton John's songs. And I'm telling them, like, we play Elton John, like Elton John's like we launched Elton John's career in the 70s in New York, like nothing, not we, but you know what I mean? It was played there. And I did, I'm pouring, you got to pour a bit of gravy on every time you pitch a PR person. And, but I'm pouring it on, and most of it's legitimate. And she's just flat out rejecting, like, no way you're coming to this party. In the end, she said, Brad, stop the emails, you're not coming. And I'm just like, fuck, all right, not coming. Anyway, that night I'm watching the Oscars and at a mate's place. I'm dressed up in my tux. My mate, Swano, good bloke, he's got the okay to go to the party, and he's dressed up in his tux, and we're just waiting at his place. Anyway, bang, Oscars finished. All right, let's go. We walk down there. The place is going crazy. I have to get past one chick with a clipboard and a Britney Spears headset. I remember but before I got to her, there was a policeman standing there with a shotgun. This is how crazy it was to get into this the Pacific Centre down in Beverly Hills. And I to get past the cop car, brought out my Victorian driver's license and just showed him that, and he went, "Oh yeah, straight through." I'm like, the old green Victorian driver's license. So it looks like a press pass. This is great. I get to the young lady there, Brad Blanks. You're not on the list. I said, "Please, I made up a name. I'm here on Jemima's list." And she went, all right, go straight through. So there was an art of befuddling them. It's kind of like, I always laugh that when you could befuddle people like Star Wars, it was like using the Force. Anyway, I get into the event. I'm still with my mate Swano, he was cleared. His name was everywhere. And he went up first to the three ladies sitting there. And it's kind of on the red carpet where this was. And there's 25 cameramen, 25 interviewers all lined up on this red carpet. And then there's three ladies taking the admissions into the party, sort of next to the red carpet. And they're at the end. The entry's just here. So we're all in the same sort of vicinity. My mate Swano, I watch him. He goes up straight in. I'm like, shit. All right. So I'm a bit nervous. I walk up and I go, oh, hey, how you going? Brad Blanks. And the woman, the woman on the list, no, you're not on this list. I said, check it again one more time. Brad Blanks, WPLJ in New York. And then a woman popped her head up and said, Brad, I've told you on email that you're not allowed in. And I was a woman that ran the place that I've been emailing. I went, oh, fuck. And I was in my head, and I used the line, oh, but I'm already here. Just have me in. Like, it was like, Oliver, please, just I'm here. What? It's more simple for me to walk in that door there and just keep out of trouble than walk 100 miles that way, please. And she went, no, you're not coming in. And then all of a sudden, a huge hustle and bustle. I could hear madness happening behind me and photographers starting to take photos. There was something. And she looked up and she ran. She just took off past me, and I'm like, fuck, all right, this is good. So I sort of just became, for a big guy, I sort of became inconspicuous, sort of like this, and I looked down here, what's going on the red carpet, and it was Prince had walked in, and Prince has come in, he's getting photos on the red carpet, and she's escorting Prince with bodyguards down the red carpet like this, and I'm like, oh my God, this is fucking unbelievable. This is great, and they come right behind me, next to me, as I'm up against the wall like this, and I sort of stand up, and I look really angry, and I slip in right behind Prince and the bodyguards and put my shoulders back. I'm in the tux, so I look the part, and I can, I'm 6'5", but I can sort of look 6'7", and I looked angry, and I walked in with Prince, and she didn't even see me, and I just walked straight into the door. Prince went that way into this massive, ballroom. I went straight deep to the bar. I ordered bloody 4 beers and started smashing shrimp cocktail. And I went, oh my God, I've made it into the Elton John Oscar party. Oh. And then the phone rings, and it's Hamish and Andy. And I get to joyfully tell them that story. And for the next 2 hours, they check in with me from Elton John's Oscar party. So it's sort of, what a moment of luck. I just sit there and go, imagine doing the crosses for Hamish and Andy's first show in Sydney outside the, as opposed to, being in there. And I think I tracked down, I was always good at getting celebrities on the phone, or like really D-grade celebrities. I think I got the Wallace and Gromit guy on, and Hamish was a big Wallace and Gromit guy, and he's holding his Oscar talking to them on the phone. And then I got the girl from Fast and Furious on the phone, Michelle Rodriguez. And I think Hamish and Andy asked her if she would make love to me tonight. And she said, no way, which ensued some great laughs. So there's one instance of getting in there. And look, I've done the whole trick before where you walk up, if you're trying to get 3 of your mates into some of these events or parties, you cross your arms and you see if you can get two wristbands on two. Right. That trick's worked.
Wow, I'm going to use these. Yeah.
And then you come back and you pull that one off somehow and you give it to your buddy. So there's been, but it was always the art of bamboozlement to ensure you got in there. But I wasn't just getting into these places to get free booze. I was getting there in the hope that I would get a great story to tell on radio the next morning. So there had to be a bit of a payoff. Yeah, sure.
This episode of the dos&d Show here in New York City with Brad Blanks is brought to you by Moomoo.
Ever wondered which investment app topped the charts in 2025?
It's Moomoo, Australia's most downloaded trading app this year.
With real-time data, advanced charts, and smart portfolio tools all in one place, Moomoo helps you stay informed, whether you're new to trading or deep in the markets.
Tap the link in our show notes now to download it today.
Back to the episode with Brad Blanks. One thing as well, watching your content over the years, especially your red carpet stuff, is you seem to build relationships with celebrities, and when you go to the next one, they seem to remember you, or they know your face, or they remember your type of questioning. What's your kind of kicker or secret around your style of interviewing? Because it's a bit more humorous, it's a bit more laid back, it's a bit quirky.
It's look, I'm on the red carpet in New York, and that's, as I said, I found this gap, this opening. I was caught in a stage where it was Stuttering John from the Howard Stern's show was the only other radio guy, and he was coming in to blow the red carpet up and get banned from the red carpet. And then it was me, and there was no one else in world radio doing red carpets in New York City. So I would be there at the end, and I thought, well, I'm not a journo, and I wasn't trying to be a reporter. I was trying to be sort of this knock around guy having pub chats, and they'd come down and I just asked them, how's life, how was your day, just simple, just laid back chats, and not even trying to go, I wasn't trying to go for a punchline, because my whole bit was about making them funny. If I could make Anthony Hopkins funny at Silence of the Lambs, one of the movies that came out a bit late, Red Dragon maybe, that was my goal. It was all about making the person I'm chatting to, shining a good light on them and letting them, in some instances, if they were a bit of a wanker, them hang themselves, which would be funny. Yeah. But all my content was sort of curated then, or my interviews, my chats, that I would take into a situation where they would be dissected. So I would go back, I'd be coming back into your show and playing an interview, and then we'd all have a laugh about me screwing something up, or you asked a good question. Geez, he was on the back foot there, or she gee, she didn't know what to answer when she had this hulking individual like you in front of her, or so they were all set up to be a collaborative experience on the air the next morning on the radio. So I think that's why a particular style was developed. But I always, we're lucky where we're from because we're very laid back Aussies in what we want to do. I'm not trying to. There was nothing. As I said, when anyone ever called me an entertainment reporter, I was like, "What do you mean? I'm not. I'm not an entertainment. There's nothing good. I don't. I don't even know what I don't even know if you say what are you wearing or who are you wearing. You know what I mean? Like, and I got scolded by Eva Longoria for that. I think it's who are you wearing, obviously. If the design, yes, I think so. Anyway, but it was always about creating something that was fun, upbeat, that I could take into a show the next day.
So in this day and age, because it's kind of changed a little bit. So you said like at the start there wasn't as many. Now every man and his dog goes to these events. But not only that, it's all changed. So we've had mutual connections in radio over the years on our show, and they talked about trying to break the trend of talking to a celebrity, making them laugh, shock factor, whatever. But now when you watch these things, now everyone's trying to do that. Right. Everyone's trying to come up with the stupidest question that happens at all the events, whether it's sport, entertainment, music. So what would your advice be to somebody now to try and stand out or to try capture attention?
That's a good analysis of the scene of and I love it
because people now ask, who's your electricity with? Like, and you
know what it might be. This is great because as you're saying it, I'm like, holy shit! Really, it should just be getting back to just a simple chat and generating the banter. Between two humans, regardless of what they do or what they say, and hope if my goal is to talk to someone and have that simple chat, and I'm trying to ignite a magic moment, it'll get there. You just got to do it long enough. We'll create something that will be funny, or as long as we're sort of elevating each other in that chat and not going for a punchline. I think that could be your way now, which is what simple, getting back to we're sitting in a bar, simple pub chats, when you sit at a bar and or sitting somewhere, a coffee shop, and you talk to a stranger and there's quick wit and chat going on. I think I hope that's what would stand you apart now as opposed to sort of the orchestrated, because I've stood there now on red carpets and that's the fucking creating TikTok bits on there. And you've got a 22-year-old, obviously a very talented person, but they're ordering the celeb what to do. And I'm like, fuck, I would never tell my subject matter that I'm trying to get a chat with what to do. Like, or tell them to, say this or say that. I'm just like, I would never even do radio call, shout outs. Sometimes when someone would go, oh, can you get Matthew McConaughey say I'm listening to? And I was like, no, I'm never fucking gonna do that. I'm just, I'm not gonna tell anyone. When my whole thing was just to have a yarn, have a chat, have a good time. But as you said, now people want natural moments, and I think that's the key. Things that happen organically. And as for you guys, content creators, you just hope that's done on camera, or on mic. So.
Do you get younger people that want to be in a similar space to you or feel to you reach out to you a lot and want advice, or how do I get here?
Look, I do, and I reckon I get I get more journalist majors, which is good. And I'm like, shit, I have to say, hey guys, if you followed my
the
I look back on my blueprint of how I how it went for me, I wouldn't recommend it at all. But I do. But if to give advice on that is you got to keep turning up. You got to keep pushing, no matter if it's to be a hard hitting investigative journalist or just a sort of a knockabout, which I've classed myself as trying to have a laugh and try to create fun moments, and hopefully that would turn into entertainment. You got to wake up every day and love it and keep pushing, because there's so many shit moments. You know what I mean? Like, it's in my early days, I was on air to 2 million people, but I was still living in a hostel, making bare bones cash, and anything I was making from the job, I was pumping back into myself to keep the job alive, I was working for, at the top of the game American radio performers that would have asked me straight away. So my goal was every day wake up and just try to get another day on air, you know, and so you want to keep on air, and now what's on air? You want to keep producing content, and you want to keep making it fun and to the point, and make it sharp, and keep shit rolling. Yeah. So that's what I was doing at the beginning, and it worked out. I didn't know it was just gathering so much momentum. It got to a stage where I was probably so weird in their eyes that I was living in a hostel. I was homeless in some ways, and they're like, we can't get rid of this guy. Like, what? He's giving us content from sleeping in the F bed with a gay guy from Kentucky, a backpacker from Israel, and
you're describing my last week.
Yeah, that's right. You know what I mean? Like, and I'd go in and put all this shit on air, and they're like, this is amazing. What did the gay guy from Kentucky do last night? Oh my God! I got in the shower at 4:30 and he was just coming home. Like, oh man, he was so happy. And I'd be putting that on the air, and they're like, fuck me. And then they couldn't believe they'd had this this sidekick who's Australian and living in the F bed at Chelsea International Hostel. You know, look. Just got to keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, on that too, because I think like you're an incredibly humble guy. So all your interactions with us, you've been just fantastic and helped us get this venue today. So we thank you for that. But also on that hustle phase. So, I mean, you came to New York as a very young man, accounting background, to be here 25 years later now with a family, like 3 kids living in Manhattan. Like, it's pretty incredible. From what you just said. So when you look back, and maybe more for inspiration for people, not even necessarily in the industry that you're in, but overall, to come to New York, a city that typically chews you up, spits you out, shuts the door on the way out. How have you been able to survive that and then build upon to get to where you are today?
You got some good insights in there. Like, you hit about 5 points that because the chew you up and spit you out on New York is so relevant. I don't know what it's like in 2025 because I don't hang out with enough people now that are coming here trying to make it and that. But back then, and even I came here straight after uni, before I became an accountant, and there were, you'd meet people who you could see they're not going to last long, and then you check in 6 months later and they were back in Nebraska because it's a party town. You work hard, you party. Look, I got here 01 October, and I partied, but I knew my alarm was going off every morning at 5 a.m. So I had inner discipline amongst the madness. But my whole shtick was to kind of party and put that on the air as well. So, look, I was seasoned then at being able to drink and bounce back the next day. But I think your overall question, like, was it inspiration or like?
Well, it probably wasn't. It was a poorly worded thing because it wasn't a question. It was more just. It was probably more just.
Good pump up.
Yeah, thank you. I scared the shit out of myself because I'm like, holy shit! It's a stupid story.
It's just incredible though, because I mean, like I've been here like not even a week, and I'm looking at my bank account, and thinking, "Fucking hell!" Like, but just to build a whole life here it's just kudos to you, really.
Well, thank you. Yeah, look, yes, and look, and it's off the back of those first 10 years. Like I was on this show, the Scott and Todd show at WPLJ until 2010, and I didn't have a formal contract with them, which was very lucky because I was able to do. I started on a show in 2003. I was able to do weekly segments on many shows. 2003 on a show 2002 on a show in Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. So I became a weekly guy in Minneapolis. So I had all this content that was so rich, of me interviewing celebrities on red carpets that I could then sell, So I created this like mini syndication game for me. And then of course, Hamish and Andy started up in 06. Before Hamish and Andy, I was on SEN for I did 3 years I did 04, 05, 06. Yeah, I was on SEN. I was on, in their first year, with Crawford, Hurdy and Lee Colbert. Had a show on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. And I remember I'd call in and do this show, and Ralphie Horowitz, Racetrack Ralphie, was the producer of this show, I think. Yeah, and Shane Crawford, and I'm on with James Hird, who I loved as a footballer, And
one of our first ever big name guests.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And it was awesome to be on with these guys. And I was just laughing. They had probably had an audience of 20,000 people, all guys driving home from footy training on a Thursday night. And they would be getting all my A-list, all these interviews. And they just thought I was hanging out with Matt Damon every night because I'd be sending them Matt Damon. So over that period, look, that first 10 years just set me up for the next decade, which was then 2010 to 2020, which you could pick and choose a bit of doing things. But look, it all came back to getting here, hustling, having a good vibe, being happy, and
drinking a lot of piss.
Yeah, mate. I was shit. It was the good old days. More mature now. On my,
This episode with Brad Blanks is brought to you by Fleet Plant Hire Solutions.
Dossie boy, we're all the way here in New York City. Can you believe it? And we couldn't have done it without our good friends, Fleet Plant Hire Solutions, who have been part of the dos&d show for over 2 years now, but they've been in business over 15.
When it's go time, FBH, they just deliver. We love them. They love us, and we couldn't do the show without them.
No one's better when it comes to all things earth moving. Visit fph.com.au to find out more information today, and we'll get back into the episode with Brad Blanks.
The word pitching, so like going to whoever the company is or the station with an idea. The royal wedding's on, it's coming up. This is my idea. Can you send me there?
Yep.
These are my content ideas, or the Super Bowl's here, or the NBA Finals, this, that, and the other. Like for us, even doing this trip, we've had to pitch to brands to partner with us for the trip.
Yep.
So
love it.
To us, that's just part of our DNA. It's
Yes.
what you do. You have to hustle to find a way to get over. But maybe explain, the pitching ideas and the process of actually hustling, making money to get over and do a project.
Mate, and that was, it's wonderful to hear that it's in your DNA and it was in mine. And I had to learn very quickly, from the word go. When I got here in October 01, I was sponsored from the beginning because, you get smart enough to understand radio economics. There was no role here. I was creating a role. And if you're ever creating a role for anything in any job, you've got to find the money because no one, managers don't want to break their budget. The money has to come from somewhere, but everyone has their own incentives to stick to that. So you've got to think where the cash is coming from. And in that case, back then I was sponsored by a phone company that's merged into something called Nextel. It was pretty cool. They had walkie-talkie phones, which was odd at one time. I think I was having a cuddle with my then girlfriend, now wife, at one stage, and my executive producer was talking to me through the phone one Sunday morning. She's like, "Can you hear your boss talking to you?" I'm like, "Yes, darling, yes." Anyway, so I was sponsored from the word go, and I remember that sponsorship that got me through for 3 months. So they paid me for 3 months, great. And in that 3 months, I knew the Salt Lake City Olympics were coming up in February 2002, and I wanted to go to them, and I was going to give the radio station bits from the Super Bowl, the New Orleans Super Bowl, the Salt Lake City Olympics, and the Grammys. They were my 3 big tentpole events. Can you get me more money? And he went out, and I gave him the budget, and I was cheap, one-man show. I'd stay in hostels. I'm not staying in $500 a night hotels. I was staying in $20 a nights. The India House in New Orleans, good place if it's still going. Get down there. Or the Banana Bungalow, which is not there anymore, in LA, in Hollywood. Anyway, so I would pitch that to the sales guy. He'd go off, and these people would go, "Holy shit, we can pay $5,000, and we're going to get the Olympics. We're going to get this. And then those budgets would get bigger of the job you could do. And, I was bringing big names, only big names because I was hustling to get big names. I'd go to the Olympics and I'd get 5 gold medalists and they'd be like, "How the fuck does this guy get 5 gold medalists? He's just one man. He's not NBC." So you then use that to get the next deal. And then just over and over leveraging what you did in the past to get the next big deal and let the sponsor know they could be associated with the craziness or the fun or the big star power that you can bring into any situation. That was...
So also playing on the Aussie factor a little bit too, how has that helped you kind of over the years? Is that...
Look, from the word go, it was great. Like I started with them for the Sydney Olympics and I was in Sydney working, calling back to them. So it was an obvious fit. And then that took me a year of pitching them ideas. Outback Survivor helped, which was the Survivor number 2 in the series, and I was their Survivor correspondent, and then eventually they hired me on a temporary basis, sponsor backed in October 01. But then, I remember day one, I couldn't you can't just get by on your accent. So the first 6 months were good because I was a novelty, but I had to bring substance. You had to bring real shit in. You couldn't get away with the laid backness that the Americans seem to enjoy about us, that where we just sort of chilled and then we're a nation of very fucking funny stories that anyone finds interesting. But back then the Americans, and they still do love Aussies, and that worked to an extent. But you got to bring the substance, and it didn't matter what nationality I was. That would help me on a red carpet. Don't get me wrong, because I'm still the fish out of water. Whenever you're a fish out of water, and if you're playing that role, you can get a leg up. But going back to your home base, it had to be funny.
Yeah. If you were starting fresh in 2025 and the social media game is what it is today, what can you see it playing out differently at all for yourself?
Yeah, it's a great question. It saddens me that there's not enough vision of some of the crazy positions and things I did. Like one example is I'm 10 days into the job. Let's call this the permanent job. This is Halloween. Fuck, it's Halloween morning.
Is this the radio station?
Yeah, the radio, PLJ, Halloween morning. And they say, all right, Brad, today tomorrow morning, it's Halloween morning, you're going to dress up as Monica Lewinsky in the blue dress and the red beret, and we're going to send you out to the Clintons' house who live up in
like trick-or-treating.
Trick-or-treating. and I'm just like, I'm fucking dead here. I'm going to be back. My dad sold caravans in Cobram, where I'm from. I said, I'm going to be selling caravans next year. I'm cooked here. I didn't even have a real visa. You know what I mean? Like if I'm like, real work visa, or like what the fuck? And, so
whose idea was this again?
This is Scott and Todd, the radio show.
So they've decided those.
Yeah. I think it might have been Bruce Goldberg was a producer. Monkey Boy was the junior producer.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, so I get the PLJ van. We go out there, and it's me and an intern, in the van. I'm like, fucking intern. Like, what's an intern? And a lovely guy, James, good friend of mine still. And we go out there, and the first stop I had to get to, back then you have a backpack. There was a radio, mobile phone, but had a backpack so you could sort of do interviews on it, sort of the setup. And we went to the Starbucks where Bill Clinton had his coffee every morning. And I walk into the Starbucks dressed as Lewinsky, and everyone starts laughing at me. Nah, Bill's not here. All right, thanks guys. Get back in the PLJ van, and we're driving. We don't know where their house is. We're in suburban Chappaqua. We're driving around, and the police come up behind us. And I said, oh shit, this is where I'm cooked now. Cops pulled me over on the side of the road, pull us over. I'm in the passenger seat, dressed as Monica. And anyway, I said, I'm cooked here. I'm done. This is where I'm over. And I said, James, let's just play it straight and see what happens. And I got the beret on, and I look through to the police officer who's on the side of, driven up next to us. And he goes, what are you doing? I said, we're just having a bit of fun, just driving around here. We're a radio station out of New York. He goes, yeah, I know, Brad. I've been listening all morning. And I'm like, oh. And he goes, you're looking for the Clintons' house? I said, yeah. And he goes, I'll tell you what, I'll take you there. And I'm like, holy shit. This guy's, I said, what? Why? And he goes, not real happy that they came to my town, And I went, all right, sir. Great. And he took off, and we followed him in. He took us down into a cul-de-sac, kind of like Ramsey Street from Neighbours. It was a court. You pulled in there, and the cop said, all right, good luck, Brad, have fun. And I'm like, holy shit, we found it. And then I'm live. I get on live. The whole time I was live with Scott and Todd. Put the phone in, get back on live with them. All right, Brad, go out and knock on the door. And I get out of the car, and 2 Secret Service agents walk straight out, and they said, if you take one step on the property, you're done. You're allowed to do what you want, stand on the road. And I went, all right, guys, yeah, trick or treat, whatever. And then I see a car come out of the driveway, tinted windows, and drive off. And I'm like, geez, I hope Hillary wasn't in there and saw this. Like, what an asshole I am. I felt like I realized it was epic comedy on radio, but what a prick I was. Pushed into this crazy scenario, and then got in the car and drove back. So, that was what was the question off the back of that? Sorry.
Social media.
Social media.
social
So
media,
that would have been epic social media.
Yeah.
Like that, if that was filmed or videoed, it would have been huge. And so if I could start now and had that, it gets back to the mentality, I reckon. If I had the hunger I had then and could take that hunger and start it again now with social media, I think the sky is the limit. It just comes back to how hard you want to keep rolling and how, and what's your balance? Because you don't want to over inundate with flood content that's, dog shit. You want to keep some sort of semblance of quality. And no, I think it'd be an epic time. Like you were saying, talking about man on the street stuff that's boomed. I was doing so much man on the street interviews in my time, and I'm like, my characters were so crazy. I'm like, I don't know how they would work visually. I think in some ways I might have been blessed that they were radio, because there was some scenarios that you're like, shit, you could never put this person on television, or I interviewed one woman who whenever I'd panic and not have content, because I was a content panicker as well. When you never think you got enough, you want more. Got to get this. I've got to. Hopefully this is funnier than the last bit. I went out. It was New Year's Eve, and I'd always do New Year's resolutions of New Yorkers. And so a week after New Year's Eve, and it'd be like January 6th, and I'd go out and I'd say, "Oh, what are your New Year's resolutions?" And someone would say this and that. Remember, I got this woman with a thick Eastern European accent, and I said, "What are your New Year's resolutions?" And she goes, "To give up smoking," right? And I said, "You're smoking right now." And she said, "God bless America." And I just thought, you can't even write that. It was like 5:45 a.m. in the morning. It is thick Russian accent. She's smoking a cigarette, and she celebrates that she's already broken her resolution with "God bless America." Look, content can be found in any moment, but again, as I said, just got to keep pushing. And I think, you see online now how hard people are working. It scares me. It does give me post-traumatic stress when I do look at some people, how they're just burning on it and they're just creating amazing stuff on a daily basis. Because I guess I was doing that on radio, but it can get hard to keep going.
Crazy game. Now, I was going to ask, you mind if we change tacks and jump into the segment, because it's going to probably lead to kind of where I want to go next. So we might just, this is a brand new segment, Brad, for this trip. Now, we've got CoinSpot on Bob. We're talking a bit about crypto before. Dustin, want to maybe just intro the segment here?
Yeah, so on the spot, this is, Brad.
Yes.
So it's brought to you by CoinSpot, the top crypto app in Australia. I use CoinSpot every day. Well, not every day because I don't have the money to invest every day, but at least every week I put my money away into CoinSpot.
That's right. Trusted by over 3 million as well. You can download the CoinSpot app and you can start with just $1. Get into Bitcoin for just $1. Can you believe that, Dos?
I know.
Nice and easy.
Now the game today, it's a play on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Right.
So we don't have the suspense music now.
Those listening will hear
Those
it.
listening will. Actually, that's true.
Yeah.
That's the pure brilliance of editing.
Breaking the fourth wall. Yeah.
But we've got a question for Brad with 4 multiple choices for you to pick from.
So we want to see if you can get this question right. Now, we're going to have to beep this one, but this is the question. So which celebrity, Brad, called you, and I quote, a big, fat, sweaty Australian... Can I say it? Now, was it A, Will Smith? Was it B, Ricky Gervais? Was it C, Meryl Streep? Or was it D, Miley Cyrus?
Wow. All right. This is good. Will Smith is always a gentleman. Not him. He wouldn't use the C word. And always upbeat, always positive, which, of course, the Oscar thing was scary. When he punched poor old Chris Rock in the face, but great guy. Meryl Streep, I've been in her company. Initially scary, but a sweetheart underneath. And Miley Cyrus, she might use the C word, but totally cool chick, awesome. So that only leaves one more, and I'm going to lock that in. B, Ricky Gervais.
Brad, you're correct.
Now, we'd love to hear this foul language that came from Ricky. I would love to just hear, why he used that and maybe a bit about the relationship between you two.
Yeah, I think it just comes back to the shape of my head. I have this round head, big forehead, a lot like his mate Carl Pilkington. He has fascinations with humans' bodies and sizes and shapes, judging by a lot of his friends in terms of the tallness of Stephen Merchant. And from the get-go, our relationship was him abusing me. I think he said I have a head on me like a half-eaten orange or a half-skinned bison. And I went, a buffalo? Like, how do you? Like, that's a buffalo. Like, how do I look like a buffalo? Anyway, and then that one, a sweaty C word, fat, sweaty. But I did win one argument with him. I did go head-to-head with him in abusing each other, and I got the last one in, which I'm very proud of.
Was that you look better when you were fat?
My final line was, "You were funnier when you were fat," and he goes, "You got me there." Which, being a bigger guy myself, when your weight fluctuates, people do treat you differently. And in Ricky's case, he was funny when he's fat.
So with Ricky too. So obviously, I mean, how many times would you have interviewed him now? We counted, it's over 10.
No, it's up to. I reckon it'd be 22 times, including radio, because I'd get him to call in to the show. Both shows that over the last 20 years. And the great thing about Ricky is when I would catch up with him, he would count. He would have the count. He knew the count, which is, he's a genius. And I remember one day I go, Ricky, do you know who's interviewed you more than me in America? And he goes, oh shit, actually I don't. Who is it? And it was at the time, it was me vying with Jon Stewart was interviewing him. He was always on the Daily Show, and Dave Letterman. And I went, well, it's Dave Letterman. He's interviewed you X amount of times. And he went, well, that makes sense. Dave Letterman. I said, what's the difference between me and Dave Letterman? And he goes, well, that makes sense. Dave Letterman's a professional. And I went, all right, Ricky, I can handle that bit of abuse. Yeah, you're right. Thank you. Good one. I said, well, how do you describe me? And he goes, well, you're kind of like those guys that hang around Hyde Park, Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park, London, carry plastic bags full of newspapers and scream, I love Jesus. And it was just a beautifully worded takedown of me, comparing me to Dave Letterman. But Ricky's he's a ripper, and I've had a great run. When you find someone that you have a good rapport with, and he just, that guy just kept growing. I started interviewing him when no one in America knew who he was. Only like comedy elite knew who he was. And we'd have great banter, and then it just kept growing and growing in the US. So top guy and a kind fella.
Yeah.
Really good.
A ripping bloke. He's someone that we love his content, and watching some of those interviews back was just absolutely hilarious.
Especially like you said though, like watching him. So like we're big Office fans, initially, but we followed his work the whole way through. I actually only recently watched Afterlife for the first time. I kind of avoided it because I thought it'd be so dark and depressing. But it's unbelievable. But hearing you interview him after watching the first series, you've been able to follow him through his career and his evolution, because he's gone from
different. It's all different, and then his stand-up's so different now, and that Afterlife was great because it was I love getting when you're in radio, I'd always get the interviews after. I would never get the interview leading up to the big Jimmy Fallon or the big talk Letterman or. The big talk shows would get the interviews in that week leading up, but I'd get the second week interviews. And it would always be nice getting the second week chats with people because you'd get their reaction to how their product went. Yes. And with Ricky on that, I interviewed him on the Monday morning after Afterlife had come out that weekend, and it had blown up on social media. And to get his reaction to that, it was like, holy shit, I'm interviewing this guy who's so confident and one of the most lethal shit givers in the history of what we've created, and so funny. But I got him at a really sensitive, awesome time. So I have this interview with him where he's like humbled by the love he got for Afterlife. This is season 1, and I went, fuck, this is cool, because I'm getting, I've got an interview of him calling me a big sweaty fat C word. And now I've got him really kind of emotional that he's created this show. Get granted, I think it was like 8, 9 years later from him calling me a fat fuck. To now, but that's cool when you get to check the interviews you've done over time and the people you've chatted to. So it's awesome. Yeah.
So you've probably seen the career of Ricky's change over a long period of time. There's a couple of Aussie blokes named Hamish and Andy who you've been a part of their early infancy and watched their transition as well. I mean, what they've become and who they are now in Australian, I guess, history, like in the media landscape, is just super impressive. And you've known them since the very beginning. I mean, do you want to maybe share a little bit about your first meetings with them?
Yeah, I was. I would always pop in because every day I thought I was going to lose my job in PLJ, and sometimes it's a good attitude to have. It causes you a lot of trauma when you think you're going to lose your job. But I thought I was going to end up back in Australia, so I'd always drop into Fox FM. Like I might need a job here answering phones or something one day, and
keep your finger on the pulse.
Yeah, that's right. And I'd always sit in this. It was March 2003. And I was in the back room. I was meant to meet Matt Tilley, who was the big star of Fox FM in the mornings. And Matt goes, Brad, I'm sorry, I've got to cancel the meeting. And he goes, I'm leaving. And he got a taxi to the airport. And I'm going to leave you with Sam. And it was Sam Kavanagh, and who's become a legend of producing. And he was the junior producer on the Matt and Tracy and Matt show back then on Fox FM Melbourne. Anyway, and then Sam had a mate in there who was just sitting on a PC, and it was Hamish. So I said, what's your role? And he goes, I'm like, I don't even know. Sometimes they put me on air to do stuff with me, or I went, oh, cool. And he goes, but I try to write them one-liners and jokes. I went, oh, great. I said, can you write me something? I've got the Iraq war's just broken out, but I'm flying via Japan back to New York, and they're going to call me from New York to Japan or something. So something war related, and he wrote me this like a sketch or something, like a couple of jokes I could use on radio. I've got to find that because that'd be just like history right there. Hamish Blake jokes written. Anyway, so I hit it off with him, and then stayed in touch, and they came over to do a junket for Dukes of Hazzard. Jessica Simpson was the big star, Johnny Knoxville, and Jessica, great. That's great.
I love that movie.
That's awesome. That was Hamish and Andy covered that. Wow. So they were on a junket for their Saturday morning show, and then we spent the week. They were here for a week, so I'd catch up with them for lunches and dinners and have beers and carry on. And so I hit it up. That's when I met Andy. So I met Andy here in New York, and then fast forward to 2005 grand final. I went into Fox FM again on a Friday night before the grand final, hung out with them. How you going? Met Dave Cameron, the boss at the time, and then it was 3 months later they started their pilots over Christmas break, non-rating season, just to test the show out, and they were calling me from New York. I was on for a couple of days about 3 days of the week. And I just give them old interviews that I had, and it was great fun. And then at the end of that, they said, Brad, we've been hired. We start in Melbourne afternoons, end of January. I thought, this is great for these guys. And they said, do you want to call in and just give us a weekly segment? And then as that show grew and went national pretty quickly, I was their guy that would call in once a week from New York. And the whole bit was, I wasn't, they were on Fox FM. It was a big, and Today FM in Sydney and all. There was a big gossip entertainment industry sort of station, and I wasn't that. And their show was never that. So my bit with celebrities kind of fitted into what they liked, and I would just give them the interviews I was doing anyway, and we'd turn it into a little interview of me being defeated or trying to chat to a supermodel and failing, and or chat to a movie star and screwing it up or getting a laugh at the end. And for me, it was a great education in different radio shows, treating content differently or what I would supply. And mate, they were awesome. And it was just great fun how you'd create this comedy with them. It was like poetry with them, how they could spin a story and then include me add it in. And yeah, it was a great, I think I was on with them till like 2017.
Wow.
One
of my favourite moments was, I think it was the 2012 London Olympics. Was it 2012? Yeah, I think it was 2012. And they had you run into the studio in the Lycra, the full body kit, holding the Olympic torch, surrounded by other Aussies, I think it was. And you were doing the last leg. And you ran into the studio in the I think it was bright orange lycra or something like that.
No, green and gold.
Right, was it green and gold?
Yeah,
Oh,
it was.
yeah.
He dressed me as
Kathy
Kathy
Freeman.
Freeman's
Oh,
suit,
yeah.
and I had some portly issues with my belly, a bit tight in the groinage region, and that was unbelievable. Like, I can't even fathom how that came off. Because I was in the pub with, they were in another location. I was in the Shepherd's Bush walkabout, which is fucking batshit crazy because I'd spent probably 200 nights of my life in a previous existence as an accountant living in London in that exact pub. Here I am with I think the Qantas Young Girls Choir singing or something in the pub, and then the whole crowd drinking snake bites, which was cranberry and beers, all the shit I used to drink and just off my head, as a pretty poor accountant. And meanwhile, here I am doing this awesome, Hamish and Andy bit, dressed head to tails, and I had to light the flaming galah and then run out of there and run through the streets of London and then get back in. And it was awesome. It was the night before the opening ceremony of the London Games. And on that whole trip, I was hired by NBC. So I was an NBC contractor for those Olympics. And my boss at the time said, where are you going? I said, I'm just going to go see some mates for a beer tonight. And he went, all right, well, make sure you're in early tomorrow morning and get to work. It's opening ceremony day. And I went, yeah, sure. Fuck, I hope he doesn't find out that I'm on fucking national TV, dressed up in a bloody lycra suit, across Australia. And, but again, that gets back to you got to hustle. You got to sort of have many jobs and hopefully get paid from a few sources. And anyway, but that was a thrill.
Are you aware of, especially in those early days, when do you become aware of the juggernaut and the history that's being made with those guys, as in Hamish and Andy, and when do you click to go, these guys are not only going to be huge, but...
No, that was early, mate. So they began in 2006, and by the 18-month mark, they were already massive. I remember we came over to... I was out in LA. They came over to LA, did a week of shows in Los Angeles. And I can't remember what it was exactly for, but it was a wild week. I think Lindsay Lohan got arrested. David Beckham and Victoria had just moved to LA and they threw a big party. So they set me up a tree there to cover that. And I couldn't get near anyone. But they were in LA that week and just they'd already, their brilliance in my world, which was interviewing Hollywood talent, they'd already tapped into loads of Hollywood. They were so affectionately known from Hollywood people. And I really love that, and that was the rise of Judd Apatow's crew. And so it was a lot of those Judd Apatow people. There's interviews out there with Hamish and Andy interviewing Paul Rudd, Seth Rogen, Jonah Hill, like all that crew during that time. Not that Hamish and Andy were already on there. They didn't need any help from them, but for me, it was like, wow, Hollywood loves these guys as well. So, but from an Australian perspective, I mean, their whole bit is being good blokes and creating organic comedy out of nothing, which is they're brilliant. And it was just good to hear how they went about things.
I'm assuming that's what they're like off camera.
Oh,
too.
epic, awesome, fun, happy, like you guys, happy guys, just having a laugh and Ripper guys.
And then we're actually in Old Mate's Pub, which obviously Andy has a big bit to do with. So maybe you were here on the first day it opened in March.
It was the last day of February maybe or something like that. Yeah, and it was madness. A line right around the corner, which is funny to say because there's still a line around the corner. They have Saturday day parties here, and there's lines around the corner. And this area where we're sitting here just goes off. Yeah, we're in the basement, the underground bar, the sticky carpet bar. Eddie Buckingham calls it. But yeah, look, and Andy was over for that, and I've been watching for the last few years when Andy had come in, and him and Eddie would be conspiring to do this place. So I've been sort of involved, had an ear to the ground, having beers with them as they were planning this, and it was that opening night was, oh my goodness, just epic. And Hamish was here that night, which was funny. Hamish just flew in for the opening. and he ran the meat raffle, which was good. So it was funny. It was like Hamish doing a pub appearance, which is
sporty.
Which is like the good old days of radio. When you'd you go and spin the wheel at a shopping centre or something. not that Hamish and Andy did that much early in their early career because they were booming so quickly. Great guys.
Mate, it's been awesome. Is it time for the milkman to come out?
Oh yeah, the milkman.
Yeah, we've got to do that now. So Brad, and for those that listen, the loyal listeners and viewers of dos&d, they know that back at home in Melbourne, we have the dos&d goodie bag.
Right.
Now, that means the guests go home. You've been wide world of sports. It's the old, back the truck up. Here's this product, that product. But because we've flown all the way over here, we haven't been able to take as much product. But we have been able to bring you a very special product from one of our absolute...
I've got one here.
Oh, you got one there?
I've just got one behind us.
One of our most loyal dos&d goodie bag contributors. That's Milkman Australia. Now, Milkman are all things male grooming. And what they're sending you home with there is there's a travel bag there, and there's a few little goodies in there, mostly
brilliant.
the natural deodorant range. Now, you love the natural deodorant.
I do. Well, they do everything from a bit of hair care, skin care.
I need the hair care.
Bit of beard as well.
Any moisturiser. I'm trying to get this is great.
But the natural deodorant.
Oh, that's great.
So we wear the deodorant and the cologne every day. You got the hair powder through there too. So we need to say a big thank you to Milkman Australia. Guys, if you do want to look like Brad and get involved, 20% off you can get by using the code dos&d at milkmanaustralia.com.
We're coming up to Christmas time too.
That's right.
Christmas time.
Perfect.
I do love the bag, fellas. Great bag. If you go to the racetrack, win a load of cash is where you put your cash as well. So well done. You'll look handsome when you're at the...
And now Ricky can stop calling you sweaty because you've
right.
always got the
you're always ready to go. Always
it.
look clean cut. No, thank you. Thank you guys.
Mate, our pleasure. But it's been an absolute thrill, like we said throughout this episode. We really appreciate you... how easy you've made this whole thing. It's hard to orchestrate on the other side of the world, but you've been an absolute gentleman, Brad. We've been so thrilled once you said yes, and it's been awesome chatting. So we want to say
thank you. I hope some of the stories hit home, and I hope that, it's funny as I'm saying it all, I'm like, shit. Is this a motivational podcast? I hope I help someone out there, but I hope I get across that you just I think you just be happy and have a laugh and be a good bloke, and hopefully you're a good bloke, and have no sort of agendas over the person you have. Have your own personal agendas, but work hard and that whole thing of make every post a winner and see where you end up, because it's crazy luck will come down and strike you, because you can get luck. Like I walked in off the street to WPLJ, a radio station. And I wasn't even meant to, and I walked in and they threw me, I was pitching the idea to the producer and they threw me straight on air, and I did 10 minutes with them. I'd never spoken on radio before, and they said, do you have any experience in broadcasting? I said, no. They said, you're hired. I said, thank you. And they said, where do you live? I said, I live in Bondi. I live right next to the beach volleyball court. I flew from New York City back to Bondi at the time, and I reported live every night during that Sydney Olympics. And if that ended after that of my media career, I would have been happy. That was the best 2 weeks of my life, those Sydney Olympics. And then to sit here, as you said, 25 years on, still be doing what I love and chatting and talking to people, it's been a lucky ride. So I hope I could get that message. Luck and hard work, and good times, having a laugh.
Well, actually, one thing we should say too, because Brad's done over 5,000 celebrity interviews. We've name dropped some of them, but if people want to go watch them, where's the best place? YouTube's popping, but what about your website? Or?
Yeah. You go to easy website, bradblanks.com, Instagram, Brad Blanks, everything Brad Blanks. You can find me. And
Shooting
YouTube's
Blanks.
good. Yeah, Shooting Blanks, and I got some crazy stuff on there. So
awesome.
Thanks, guys. Awesome.